Hi, my name is Kate, and I love to read. Like, I was carrying books around with me before Kindles were a thing. So I decided to start a podcast where I interview the authors of some of my favorite books, ask them all of my questions so that I can read between the lines of the books. So this week we are back with someone that some of you might remember because she was one of my first guests. I am talking to Yasmin Angoe about her second book in the Nena Knight series. So thanks for being on the podcast again.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of catch up with you first, and then we'll talk about the book. But what has been the biggest change in your life since publishing your first and now your second book?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess the biggest change in my life has been just the amount of people who have read the first one right here and have told me how, they liked it, and being able to attend like the conferences and conventions and things like that, and talk to readers. That's been like the biggest change, and like a much needed change, because I needed to hear that from them and kind of see where everybody was. So, and that's exciting. That makes me excited about the second one and the third one coming too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I did see like you posting pictures at all the like book cons and stuff. So that was really cool seeing everybody together.
Yeah.
So did you approach your writing process any differently for this book?
Yeah, well, because I had a deadline for this book, and so I had to be a lot more disciplined. The first one, I was just able to write, whenever I felt like it, and there was no pressure from anyone to like get it done or anything like that. Well, nobody pressured me for the second one either. I pressured myself, so it's really pressuring myself. Sorry. To get it done and everything like that. That was, I think, the difference between the first and the second with my writing process. I just really had to be disciplined and give myself a schedule that I didn't adhere to. So I'm my worst boss and employee. I'm really horrible. So I think I need to have like some sort of like discussion with myself as an employee, and probably put myself on an improvement plan.
That's funny. I mean, you still got it written, so the goal was generally accomplished. So I'm happy about that, at least.
Not without a lot of angst. There was a lot of angst going on.
That's funny. What was your favorite part about writing this one then?
My favorite part about writing it was that I knew the characters so well. And so I was able to make, I was able to go places with them and really enjoy, their evolution from the first one to the second one and things like that. So I really just felt really good about the characters and about where they were going and what they were doing. And so, that would be it.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about writing action thrillers then?
My favorite thing about writing action thrillers is I really feel like I can just have a whole lot of fun, and I can, I can just be all out with, like the shootouts or however she's gonna fight. I can get all my aggression out, I think, physically, which is something that I can't do in real life because, I don't know how to fight that well. Well, I've never been in one to know how I am. So, so like I just get to like do all those kind of fun things, but like I like to make it make sense for me. But I think anything that I write, I would get an enjoyment out of it. It just depends on what I'm feeling at the moment. But the action scenes and the thriller, I like to be able to ramp that up for the reader, and the tension and the suspense. And so if I'm able to do that for myself, then I think that translates to the page for the readers.
Yeah, I really feel like it did, because I was reading and was sitting more and more straight up during or leaning forward when I would get to the really intense scenes, and I was like, wait a second, I can relax. So it definitely came through for me.
Good. That's exactly what I wanted to. Good deal.
Yeah. So this one, obviously you kind of already had your inspiration for the characters since this was the second book, but how did you, like, what gave you your inspiration for like the plot in this one?
So I think that when I was first thinking about how to make this into a series, I kind of had an arc that I wanted Nena to kind of go through. The first one was very personal and something that she
Mm-hmm.
had to achieve for herself, within herself, regarding her past and everything. The second one, I wanted to delve a little bit more into the tribe and their
Mm-hmm.
workings and how things may come or may not come about with an organization of so many different powerful people. There are always going to be people in there that, kind of are not for all as they're supposed to be. And so I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of make it like, what was going on, like within the tribe, this thing that her dad
Mm-hmm.
cares about and believes in so much. And
Mm-hmm.
also wanted to, continue on with the growth that she had started from the first. And then, when
Yeah.
I'm moving to the third will be more of, the tribe on a global scale and how they help others and where Nena fits into, her positions within the tribe. If she's really, because she's always been like a reluctant leader in the sense of
Mm-hmm.
like politics and things like that. So, when faced with that, how will she do? Will she just kind of go with it, or will she stick to just wanting to be on dispatch, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I'm so excited for that third one, so that's fun to hear. What would you like? How would you briefly describe the book if someone, you kind of did there, but how would you describe it if someone didn't know what it was about?
Wow. Okay. Well, so for the second one, there is a threat that is looming, or not even looming. It's coming for Nena, and not only Nena, it's coming for her family and the whole entire tribe. So that's the title for "They Come at Night," because they do come, for her and her family, and threaten to
Mm-hmm.
dismantle everything that her father Noble has created, and
Mm-hmm.
the true goal of the tribe. And then they want to unseat him and take over and things like that. So she's got to figure out who is attacking the tribe and their property, and who's really coming for them, and kind of get rid of that so that she can keep this family that she has found and has grown to love and care for.
Yeah, that sums it up really well. It is, you won't, you're not gonna be able to guess the ending as someone who read it, so it is very fun. So we are going to talk more in depth about the book now. So if you haven't read the book, just pause the episode, and otherwise you can keep listening. So at the beginning of the book, Nina is talking to one of her teammates, or one of her
Mhm.
team members, Sierra, about how they have to work so much harder to succeed in a man's world as women of color. What was your experience bringing Nina's story to a genre that's kind of dominated by men as well? And then on the flip side, what was it like knowing that you got to bring a powerful woman of color to the genre?
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's such a great question. And I definitely had to put that in there because it is true, in my life, in anything that, women in general, do, especially if you're a woman of color, or from any, marginalized group. But like, just getting into, any kind of field that has been male dominated it's very tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that coming into a genre that is so male dominated,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I'll be all honest, like white male dominated,
White
right?
males, yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
you see, right? And so you really, you see a lot of like psychological thrillers and mystery,
Mm-hmm.
from women and everything, but maybe not so much the action thriller that I have. But those are the
Yeah.
things that I loved. And so putting that into, I try to have some sort of conversation that's like setting on my mind. So in the second book, I've talked with people with the first, and everyone is so surprised, really surprised, at, what Nina can do, and that she's
Yeah.
black, and that the person who wrote her was black, and a female, you know what I mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to bring that conversation into the book. Like, we're in this male dominated thing, as Nena is, as Alpha tells, likes to tell her all the time, right?
Yeah.
And, I go to the conventions and I see all, my counterparts who are, writing in this kind of genre or
Yeah.
espionage or spy, military,
Hmm.
stuff like that. And they certainly don't look like me. And they're great, they're so nice and everything like
Right.
that. But, it makes me kind of like a surprise, like, wow, look at you, like, I can't believe you're doing this. And I'm like, why
Right.
can't anybody believe it? Because women
Hmm.
have all sorts of interests. I don't want to just be like
Yeah.
romance and women's fiction, or I don't want to be bottled into things that people place on me. And so
Yes.
that's what Nina's conversation is with Sierra, that I have to
Hmm.
work harder, right? I have to,
Yeah.
when I'm writing this, I go over like the scenes over and over. And I'm thinking, even though
Hmm.
I don't want to have, I don't want to, get like verification from a guy necessarily, because I don't go to a
Hmm.
guy to say, hey, did I do this right? With this
Yeah.
particular thing, like, I feel more pressure, so that,
Hmm.
nobody says, oh, well, this is definitely something that, a girl wrote, and this is very
Hmm.
girly, and, no guy would do this. And so I want to
Yes.
have the same level of respect as, the male authors, who write in this
Hmm.
genre. So I put
Yeah.
that in my book, and I live it every day, and they've been
Yeah.
pleasant. I've not encountered an alpha, which is great.
That's good.
But I want to normalize women writing in these genres, and so that,
Hmm.
guys can read it, anybody can read it, and
Hmm.
feel like, wow, this is just a great character. Not necessarily, oh, this
Yes.
is a woman character, or this is a black woman character, or this is a woman from,
Yes.
some country that we never even thought, would think about doing things like this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
went really, really long on your question. I'm sorry.
No, I loved it. I was like, I'm so glad that this was a good question. And did you grow up in Ghana? Is that what it said in or are your parents did? I saw that in your
My
bio.
parents, yeah, my parents were born and raised, and
Okay.
I lived there for a couple of years while they finished school, but I mostly grew up. I was born and raised here for the most
Okay.
part.
That's cool though that you got to like write about it in this book more, especially.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So the one of the core struggles between Court and Nina is that they have really differing views on justice.
Hmm.
And Nina points out how Court's definition of justice would probably be different if he had stayed in Haiti. Like he might not have just been on the side of the government all the time.
Hmm.
And so she asks him, is your definition of justice determined by where you live or by who you are and what your belief system is? So whose point of view do you most agree with?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So I would have to say that mine is a little bit more so, Nina. Now, and I'm not saying that people should just go out and have like vigilante justice and like
Right.
just kill off people, you know what I mean? But I do believe that, laws created by government are not always like thinking about everybody. I mean, let's, be honest. And me as a black woman, in America, I know that there aren't. And there
Right.
have been many cases in which, the same rules and laws that apply to, certain demographics and in white people or whatever are not the
Yep.
same as they might apply to, me or someone else, who looks kind
Hmm.
of like me. And so, I feel like sometimes you have to kind of think about like this, the way Court is, he tries to be so black and white. This is just by the,
Hmm.
by the books. And I'm a rule follower. And so when people don't,
Hmm.
follow rules, I'm like, oh my gosh, he didn't do, what he was supposed to do. But then if I see and think about why they did what they did, I can
Hmm.
understand it a little bit more. And I think that's what like Nina is trying to say with him. She's trying to
Hmm.
say, hey, you need to really take things on a case by case basis. Like, you can't just
Yes.
say he's wrong and she's right, or send them to
Yeah.
jail forever, because maybe there's a reason behind it. And so you've got to kind of take things as they are, and not just try to attribute them to some set standard, because those set
Yeah.
standards probably did not have you in mind when they were made.
Hmm. Yeah, it's another one of those things too where like it's tempting to wish the world could be black and white. Like I think it's like that seems safer. So like I'm a very black and white person in certain situations, or I would definitely prefer it to be black and white in more situations in life, but it's just not like
Yeah.
ever. And even if it seems safer, it's not necessarily true that you can make it black and white.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So when considering her relationship with Georgia, Nena is reflecting on it and says, Nena liked having someone see nothing ugly about who she was or what she did. Georgia witnessed both Echo and Nena and accepted them both. And it also kind of feels like both of the books in the series are allowing the reader to see both sides of Nena and Echo, and you still end up on her side. So how did you approach making Nena so badass, but also still accessible?
Right. Well, so it's I think my goal is to always, have the reader try to be sympathetic and empathetic to Nena, and I started that with the first, and it's very much like when we were talking about like what's black and white. Nena's not black and white, but initially when you see, oh, she's an assassin, you want to say, oh, that's black and white, like that's not good, killing people for money. But like
Right.
Nena believes, which is the conversation she always has with Court, because her own personal, story is something that he can't take as black and white. And if he did,
Right.
then he shouldn't be with her, right? And he should be wanting her to go to jail because she is, in the sense of his justice, a criminal. And so
Yeah.
what I wanted to do with the reader, because, I'm like, well, these readers have to come with me on a ride for 3 books, and they can't have these 3 books, hating her. They could definitely hate some of the things that she does. But I want them to
Yeah.
be able to see why she does what she does, and then from there determine whether or not they can root for her or not. You know what I mean? And so what I just really tried, and I did that by opening them up in the first book to, what she's been through, so that it's like her origin story, so you can kind of see where she came from and how she came to be, and then
Yeah.
use that in the back burner of why is she like, so cold to people, why doesn't she joke around or laugh, and all this
Yeah.
other stuff, why doesn't she want to be more like her sister and cool, she's a rich girl, whatever. There's
Yeah.
reasons for that, and she has standards, and she has a code that she lives for, which is her family
Yes.
first. And so that's what I think most people can relate to is, whoever is in their tribe, whether it is their, biological family or a found family, whoever is most important to them,
Yeah.
they would do whatever. And they also know, everybody knows that, sometimes you may do a little something that you shouldn't for that person
Yes.
that you love, whether it's like you tell a little white lie or, whatever it is that you're doing. So I wanted them to just really see that she is a human and that she's been through some stuff. And that's
Yeah.
what molded her into what she is. And so what she does is, just an extension of that. But I also wanted them to appreciate that, even though she has a job that, people might not agree with, she's very
Right.
proud of how well she can do the job. And so that doesn't mean that
Yes.
she's proud of, the job. She doesn't take pleasure in killing people, right? But it is
Yeah.
just a job. And so she's able to disconnect and compartmentalize and things like that, which is something we have
Yeah.
to do a lot of in the workplace, and be able to
Yeah.
take emotions out and just do the job well.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not. So I think that's something that people can relate to. Plus, she's just
Yeah,
fun.
that's a good. She is. She has her own versions of it, and I think you're right that like you don't have to be an assassin to compartmentalize your work self and your like home self. So I think it is really accessible.
Yes.
You mentioned found family, which is what she has for sure. And the Knights are really close knit. They're really caring feeling, and they really welcome Court and Georgia into their family in this book. And it says because family to them wasn't only from blood, family was anyone for who they cared. And so
Yeah.
how do you think kind of this like found family or family of choice affects like both Nena and Georgia?
Well, so Georgia and Nina, both lost a parent. Nina lost both,
Hmm.
but Georgia has definitely felt that loss. And it's only been really her and her father throughout all these, years. And her father has been very career driven. So there are things that, she was missing out on, that she felt, she was missing out on, and she was going through, at school, and things like that. And so Nina saw that loss, and that that person that's looking for something in
Hmm.
Georgia. She saw herself in Georgia, which is
Hmm.
why she saved her, and why she kind of like brought her within the family and things like that. And then also Georgia surprised the hell out of Nina when
Yeah.
Georgia barely batted an eye when she,
Yeah.
she took out those guys in the first one right in front of Georgia, and
Yeah.
Georgia was basically like, "Please, can I have some more?" And so that
Yes.
was like really surprising to her.
Yes.
And I think it's surprising to a lot of people. But kids these days, and I even see it with my teens, my kids, that things will go on and they'll just be like, huh, okay, because they kind of understand all those different, like, there's reasons for things.
Yeah.
And so that's how Georgia is. And Georgia, has wanted someone in her life that is just so like her in like-mindedness, in
Yeah.
thinking, beyond the this is wrong and this is right, like of her father. And then she
Hmm.
also sees like this woman just like owning the things that she does, and being able to
Hmm.
do all of these things and not being afraid, because
Yeah.
Court is very protective of Georgia, and always wants to kind of bottle her up,
Yep.
because he's seen the horrors of the world, and he doesn't want that for
Yeah.
her. But Georgia very much wants to experience all of that, 'cause she sees, well, geez, if Nina can do it, and then even Aline, who doesn't go out and kill people, but she's so badass in how she is, in
Yep.
owning her sexuality, and in owning her fashion, and being such a boss, business lady. Georgia
Yes.
sees all of that in these women, and she wants, to have more of it. And
Yeah.
Nina is like, loves the fact that she doesn't judge. And
Yeah.
so that's why they get along so well, and she's able to
Hmm.
come forth into the family. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the all it's an action thriller, so you're not going to have your heartwarming scenes for long, but every time it was like a softer, chiller scene, I was like, "Oh, I just want to hang out with these people."
Me too.
Yeah. So Nina, as much as she really wants as an adult to have a normal relationship with Court, her sexual trauma, all of her trauma, but her sexual trauma prevents that from happening really easily. And the descriptions in this book of her PTSD coming up were like heartbreaking, and really were depicting the struggle of her inner child and her adult self so well. How did you approach writing those scenes?
Well, so yeah, that one was, it was difficult, but I had to like I had to like dig in, right, into myself, and be like, okay, I've had issues and things like that, and how would I feel, if I were in her shoes, and this has
Yeah.
happened to me, and how do I make it true to the story? Like, I can't just have her jump on in and be like, okay, like, everything
Yes.
is fine now, because it's not. And
Yeah.
I know that when things happen to us, and then something, it could be something so innocuous, will trigger, right,
Yep.
and we're taken right back to that moment again. and
Hmm.
and so something as simple as Court kissing her, or Court touching her, or even the thought of them going further, and having sex, is like just totally, um it's terrifying to her. That is the thing
Hmm.
that scares her, because all she knew from that experience was something she didn't want, and
Yeah.
pain, right? And trauma.
Hmm.
So she can't divest herself of that until,
Yeah.
she is kind of shown that. And he's trying to show that, and he's very, very patient, with her, because he
Yes.
knows. But
Yeah.
that's definitely something she has to work, within herself, and try to get herself, comfortable with it bit by bit. So
Hmm.
I really
Hmm.
just, thought of myself, and I know, in my experiences, that when I'm trying to try something new after having experienced a loss or, a trauma or whatever, it's
Yeah.
very hard for me. And I will go back and forth. And I just figure, a lot of people go back and forth before
Yeah.
something finally just maybe clicks for them and they feel, okay, I can be safe with this person and I'm going to
Yeah.
try this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool insight because it is anytime there's been trauma around anything, the next time you go to do something, it's so much more intimidating, and you have to like practice doing it again before it's easy again.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that's really cool insight. So at the end, we find out who was mostly behind everything, and it's so
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
Did you know when you started writing that he was going to be the one kind of in the center of it? And did you know in the first book that he would betray her?
I absolutely did not know in the first book. And I got to tell you, I'm still mad at myself because I'm
Oh.
like, why did I do it? But I know I had to. And I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted, to turn the readers on their heads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's still something because he's one of my favorite characters. I love him.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and deep down, it's not, he wasn't doing it again when we're talking about the people's reasons for doing
Yes.
things, and he has a reason, and he even has like a trauma, right, that
Right.
has you know made him this way or made him make these decisions,
Right.
and so I just, unfortunately, he made the wrong decisions, and
Yeah.
in what he was trying to do, and forced Nina to have to make a decision that she absolutely never wanted to do, again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like,
Yeah.
that builds a lot of resentment for her that's going to go into the next one, because now she's
Yeah.
thinking, like, why do people keep doing these things that
I know.
force me, that put me in this position, that I have
Yeah.
to do this thing that I hate.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is someone, that is really a good person, but like I don't know. So I'm still like kind of grieving that, and I'm a little
Yeah.
sad. I'm a little sad, but
I know.
I don't know.
It was so
I don't
powerful
even
because
know
you
how
both.
that came to be. I think it was I was writing in the middle. I was writing, and I was like, okay, so it's got to be this person, and this has got to be the
Yeah.
reason why, for
Yeah.
it to really like hit home and devastate
Mm-hmm.
not only her, but it's going to devastate Noble as well, and
Yeah.
her whole entire family. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you had the focus in both books that she sees her life in befores and afters. And that was like one of the more powerful lines around that was like this wasn't in her before anymore. And so now it's like now even as an adult she's having someone betray her, and I was like that's not going to be good for her. It's going to bring it all right back up. So, yeah, I'm sure you've got all kinds of stuff you're working out from that ending. But there
yes,
is
yes.
a
She and
third
I are
one.
in
I know you.
therapy right now. We're trying to figure it out.
Oh, nice. Oh, that'll be cool. I know I'm gonna like that. But you are working on a third one, right? You've mentioned it a couple
I am.
times.
I actually
Nice.
I finished it not too long ago, and
Nice.
it's gone to the editors, and so we've got to do some revisions and some
Yeah.
tweakings and things like that. So I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about all of that before I get back into it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for that one. Where can people follow you so you can stay up to date and know when the third one comes out?
Sure, you can follow me on Twitter, and find me at Yasa writer. On Instagram, I am author_Yaz. And then Facebook, you can just find Yasmin Angoe, author, and follow me there. But yep, that's where you can find
Yeah.
me.
Yep. So I will put all of those in the show notes so everyone can find that. And thank you for being a guest again.